Talking with Holland School Superintendent Brian Davis the day after he was named Superintendent of the Year, an honor that caught you on the blind side, a pleasant blind side. In your position, when you get caught by the blind side, you don't like it, but this time you were humbled.
It was a very humbling experience, Gary, and a very affirming experience as well to recognize the work that we're doing here in Holland Public Schools.
Is it more of, you've been saying it's been more of perhaps the district earning the honor than Brian Davis?
Well, it certainly is. You have to establish a vision and some leadership and being able to empower individuals to do the work. But it's more than just one person. You know, the success of Holland Public Schools isn't based upon my effort alone. It really is involving all of our staff, our central leadership team, our Board of Education, the phenomenal teachers that we have and support staff across the board, our parents and our community. So this is really a recognition for what's happening in the greater Holland Public Schools.
How much of a foundation was laid by your two predecessors, Mrs. Bishop and Frank Garcia?
I think a lot of foundation was laid. You know, we began talking with Marcia Bishop about systems thinking and the work that needed to happen. She was challenged with a lot of things happening around us that were new in education, the onset of charter schools, the impact of Proposal A, school financing, a lot of legislative changes, and declining enrollment. So we had to make some tough decisions then. Frank came in the middle of that school reform in terms of different school configurations and the focus schools and a variety of things. So he had some difficult work too, some contract negotiations that were very difficult as well. A lot of those tough decisions made by boards in the past, superintendents in the past, laid the foundation for me to build upon and continue and really get back to driving that instructional component as well. So that infrastructure foundation was laid.
Talking with Holland School Superintendent Brian Davis. And we're talking a couple of weeks after the general election. It looks like a different political landscape now in Lansing. What does that mean? And probably you can only speak for Holland. What does that mean for the Holland Public Schools in terms of maybe getting the financial help from Lansing that the district really needs?
You know, one can only really speculate, I think, at this point in time what we're going to see in Lansing other than a lot of change. And I'm not sure that we're going to get answers as quickly as what we were able to in the past. We have a lot of freshman House representatives. We have a lot of freshman senators. We have a completely new executive branch. So it's going to take some time for them to get their understandings and bearings of where they're at and the political landscape themselves. But I do think that there's going to be some resolution and some change like we've been talking about for the past several years. Exactly what that change is going to be, but there will be change. I think everyone can expect that.
There will be change, but yet to a certain extent the representation of Holland in Lansing, veteran representation. Joe Havman, Bob Janetsky are back. Arlen Meekoff moves up. And Rick Jones has experience in the House. He's going to represent the south part of the district. And
Amanda Price as well. She's worked, very closely with Senator Burkholz. So yeah, even though the party platform didn't change for us, you're correct in the fact that we do have some good experience for West Michigan. And some individuals that understand education as well. I really appreciate Bob Janetsky. He, as a former educator himself, he understands some of the issues that we face. I've been working with Representative Hobman to have him into Holland Public Schools. He's been to New Tech. He's been to Holland Heights with me and in a couple other places to have them understand the issues. I wish more of our local folks had their kids in public school so they saw the differences between public and private, so it's my job to educate them. So there's school finance issues, obviously, that we need to talk about. We need to have a budget that's balanced in Lansing so we can do our work in our local schools and not have change after change, another change coming to us this year. But we also need to have work with respect to the academic side. In the end, we still need to have that element of local control. So my hope is that in Lansing, we don't just focus on the things that are wrong and develop these one-size-fits-all things to fix perhaps things that aren't broken in other areas. So that element of local control is going to be something still important to me.
You can't really worry too much about what goes on in Washington at this point?
I think Washington is definitely something we're going to have to watch as well, with the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind, with the education reform there. I think there's a lot of political pressure for education to be successful in our country. If you make comparisons across the globe of what's happening in other education institutions, definitely something we have to watch in Washington. We're moving towards a national curriculum. That's a very real thing too. What does that mean? In the minute you have a national curriculum, you end up with national assessments, you end up with national hiring practices and national. So I think we're going to be challenged with how do we balance what involvement the federal and the state government have in local affairs.
And finally, School Superintendent Brian Davis in Holland, I know that you will not comment specifically about another district, but yet on the same night that you were named Superintendent of the Year. A few miles south, the Saugatuck School Board and its teachers ratified a 2-year collective bargaining agreement with one interesting proviso in that the district is changing its teacher-employee health care from MESA, which is union-run, to Priority Health. It's going to result in substantive savings. Is this a crack that other districts can follow through, saying, hey, one district can do it, maybe others will follow through as other contracts get opened up, say in Holland, West Ottawa, Zealand, and the like? Is this an opening that needs to be made?
I don't know the details of the contract. I only know what I read in the paper today, but what I saw were two different entities coming together to say what's good for kids in the classroom and how do we accomplish that task and to continue to invest those resources back. So I think, whenever you look at collective bargaining across the state, you always look at examples of the reform initiatives, what kinds of things are being put into place, and certainly what happened in Saugatuck is going to be discussed at great length here in Ottawa and Allegan County.
Is it a different dynamic now in Holland from when there was some contentious situations because of the fact Frank Garcia is not there anymore? There's also new leadership of the Holland Education Association.
I think there's a new dynamic in Holland that is related largely to the academic reform that we're doing in the support and the empowerment of individuals. There's new leadership across the board, and I think we have the opportunity to be problem solvers to say, how can we come together and do that work? It's challenging work. Everyone has things that are important to you. There's strong principles and traditions and strong feelings about everything that we have. But I think it's a real opportune time, and I think there's a growing recognition that, we need to focus on what's good for our kids here. They're our future, our generation. They're going to be taking care of us someday. The legacy costs that we have, someone's going to have to pay for them. And how do we invest in that today? So there's a renewed commitment, I believe, and renewed excitement. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree on everything. So it's definitely some challenges ahead as we have those conversations. But I think there's a renewed commitment to have that conversation.